let's say for the remainder of the season, let's say the Bengals run the table, which is what we talked about was a realistic possibility. I got to get your opinion, man. Does this change your outlook on Taylor coaching staff, Duke, Tobin, whatever the case may be, or do you still believe changes are needed?
Absolutely. I'm gonna tell you this: the nitty gritty to me is the Tee Higgins thing, bro. Like, I mean, I get it, the coaching and like the totality.
No, let's talk about that then.
But like, I want to hear your thoughts because long time season ticket holder guy is sitting there saying they're not going to get it done. You got young punks like me that say, shit, I get a chance. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like I'm not trying to deviate from your question.
No, it's good.
But I think that Tee Higgins thing is a bombshell.
I agree.
That is a bombshell. Like, dude, I know that didn't change what I think about if they had Bill Belichick or whatever, that game last night is probably, I don't know, 20-10 and the Bengals win. Like, I just think like the toughness and like the early struggles of like the defense and like the message that like none of that changed. And the chances of them making the playoffs, none of that really changed. It went from 1% to 3%. The Broncos will have to lose every game except one.
Here's what I'll say. You know, on the Tee Higgins front, I think people have to understand that maybe the Bengals haven't made this clear because I don't think that they have. The same way that the people on the outside, the rest of the NFL is talking about Tee Higgins, Joe Burrow views Tee Higgins and values Tee Higgins on that same level, if not more, which is why he's going out of his way to make that a reality. You also got to wonder, does that piss Joe Burrow off that they have not gotten a deal done yet? That the fact that this is still a topic of conversation, and now we're talking about Tee Higgins as a pending free agent after this year. Because he says he's been adamant since he signed his contract that he wanted Tee Higgins back, to Zim's point, right? And he was going to do everything in his power to make sure that that was a reality. If he is already saying that he did some things in his contract to make that stuff a reality, you got to look at the Bengals. You got to say, okay, what's the holdup? Unless he is asking for some unrealistic number that would supersede a Jamar Chase or even become close to a Jamar Chase, why isn't a deal done yet?
What's that number for you? A guy that I really respect, not going to say his name, told me he thought 22. And I said, no. The price for him would probably be closer to 28, 30.
I thought 25, 26.
I'm thinking 28, getting close to Brandon Ayuk numbers. I feel like the Brandon Ayuk, it doesn't have like as many guarantees, but on an annual basis, the cap has now gone up. The price has gone up.
One thing I'll say to you is I think Joe Burrow's understanding the Brady method to a degree. That sometimes, you know, if you want to put together a championship roster, you sometimes have to sacrifice your own financial status, if you will. But I want to make sure everyone understands it's going to take a collective effort to get this Tee Higgins deal done in Cincinnati. It's going to take a collective effort, right? Meaning it's going to take Tee Higgins maybe taking less than what he might projected to stay in Cincinnati. How bad does T want to stay in Cincinnati? Does T really want to stay with Joe Burrow and stay aligned with Joe Burrow? And I don't know if you guys caught Tee Higgins' press conference last night, or not press conference, but his media scrum. He slipped up a couple of times. He was trying to remain coy. He was trying to say, you know, all the right stuff. Well, it's not done yet. But then he was like, I told you, Mark, we're going to need him for the future, not just this year and beyond. Then they're like, well, so do you think it's going to, you know, you'll be back here? Or we'll see. He said a lot of things last night during that media scrum that kind of caught my attention.
The fact that that's apparently not out of the question right now, can you just give us an update on that?
Yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? It'll be exciting, you know, to return here and whatnot. And shout out Joe.
So you're not ruling it out as a possibility at this point. Have things changed?
Things never change. I never ruled it out. You know, me, I persuade things the way they want to persuade things. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Do you think it's financially feasible for them to be able to get what you want to make and what they're going to be able to do under the cap, do you feel like there's going to be enough of a middle ground that y'all are going to be happy with both sides on
I
that?
think it's a question for upstairs. I have no clue.
Is this season and the way it's gone make you feel like there's unfinished business with the three of you guys to want to keep going like that together? Is that part of the motivating factor for you two?
I guess you can say that. You know what I mean?
But let me tell you something. These players have more power than they realize. TJ Watt took his contract situation into his hands and said, I want to remain in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
He said, fuck my agent and what my agent wants to do. I'm going to make this happen. He accepted the offer that Pittsburgh gave him. This could be a situation because I'm going to be honest with you. I like Tee Higgins. Zim likes Tee Higgins. Daniel likes Tee Higgins. Y'all like Tee Higgins. Here's the one thing that we got to realize too. There is a little bit of playing ball here. The Bengals can't lowball the guy, but he also has to deal in the reality that he has missed a lot of games from this season. Last season, I mean, he has missed games. And durability is something that's going to come up with teams, whether teams front load the contract or spread it over time, or maybe they have injury guarantees in there. If you want to remain in Cincinnati, like he says he wants to remain in Cincinnati, like I've been told he wants to remain in Cincinnati. And that's funny that all this stuff is coming out now because I was told that 2 weeks that he's still actively trying to remain in Cincinnati. Well, got to realize that there might be some sacrifices that take place in order to keep this roster together. If you value playing with Joe Burrow the way you do, it might be some sacrifices. Jamar Chase is a little different. I don't know if there's going to be, because I don't even want to think about what he's going to get right now. He's going to get some astronomical number. But Daniel, I want to get you on the conversation. What were your thoughts on Tee Higgins' comments? What were your thoughts on Joe Burrow's comments to Tee Higgins?
Yeah, I think that I was happy to see Burrow. I think for me, where my mind goes to, and I'd be curious to see, the numbers and everything. My mind goes to, so what's going to change, right? It seems like at this point, this is maybe just the takeaway after this game, riding high off of a win. It seems like there's a chance where this team, if they do well these next couple games, that they just try to run it back. And you try to go in and, change some things on your defense. But let's say if they do go, sign Tee Higgins, you're not going to go out there and get a star defense alignment in free agency. So you're going to go, hopefully the defense round one, you're going defense there. It seems like this team, and maybe this is a change that, Burrow and Jamar Chase, maybe they're just confident. If you go out and put some, good performances these next couple games, you run the table, there is a chance where you just run it back.
I don't want to make this too complicated, but I'm going to try to simplify this as simple as possible. A little financial literacy in here too. All right. From the injury perspective, this is what I would be telling them. Or this is if I'm Tee Higgins. All the wide receivers that missed games this season, Stephon Diggs out for the season. Chris Godwin out for the season. Brandon Ayuk out for the season. Nico Collins missed 5 games. Puka Nacua 5 games. Cooper Kupp 4 games. Chris Olave 3 games. A.J. Brown 3 games. Mike Evans 3 games. DK Metcalf 2 games. Malik Neighbors 2 games. So starting with this, if you think that that's going to be a negotiation tactic, it's probably not going to work. We're in a 2024 landscape of these wide receivers are bigger, stronger, faster. Bengals fans, I get online that I interact with, they're disgruntled, mad, God, why didn't T play? This is the nature of the wide receiver position. They're fast as hell. They're bigger. They're all hurt. Jamar Chase is a unicorn. I have a hot take on him. I think he's the best player in football, offense or defense. That's a whole nother conversation. And he should be in the MVP conversation with Joe Burrow if they were winning. All right. But all these rosters are constructed from a percentage of the cap, right? If you really take the time out to go look at this, most teams, the standard is to have their best 3 to 4 players take up between 32 and close to 40% of the cap. I did the math on this. If the Bengals were to give Tee Higgins, Devonta Smith,
Devonta Smith, okay.
Yeah, Devonta Smith, Waddle, Ayuk type of deal, 28-ish range. Then that puts Tee Higgins at 8%, 9% of the cap. Joe Burrow, I wrote this all down. I got on another note. But collectively, even Jamar Chase getting paid $40 million or whatever, which I think is going to be his price, maybe he comes down to 37.5 because he's helping T out, right? He's still the highest paid, but he takes a little bit off the top to give T $2 million or so. Burrow and them, they work it out later on. Maybe he sells a Batmobile. Who cares? All right. But those 3 players right there with collectively with those big Jamar Chase being the highest paid, Joe Burrow's deal, and Tee Higgins getting a 30-28 IU deal, that is 37 to 39% of the cap, which is super normal. Go look at the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Marlon Humphrey, and all them dudes. Like, it's the formula.
It's different positions, yeah.
It's different positions, but everybody has this formula for after you have a quarterback that's elite. And even if you didn't have a quarterback that was elite or paid, you generally take the top 3 or 4 players on your team, and it gets in that 30-something% range. Mm-hmm. So this concept that the national media tells people, like, how are they going to be able to play Jamar Chase? It's false. Now, the argument would be, okay, the Bengals front office, they don't really pay anybody. I understand that. But nobody was saying that a year ago when the Bengals paid in an offseason $100 million in cash. They gave Orlando Brown $30 million up front. They gave Joe Burrow $40 million. They paid Logan Wilson. They paid Jermaine Pratt, and they got over $100 million in cash. This is very important. Moving forward, currently, as it stands, the Bengals have over $70 million in cap space. The Bengals had the opportunity to get to $100 million in cap space. Keep up with me. Cut Kappa, Stone, Rankins, Moss, and Sam Hubbard.
Yep.
That alone would get you to $100 million in cap space. So this concept that I see people writing this or whatever, this concept that you think that Tee Higgins somehow stymies your plan to fix the defense. No. In fact, it probably enhances it. Once you get Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase in there, we would go to the draft. We're not looking at any wide receiver projects. The Burton project, me and Daniel, we lost, bro. Burton wasn't even on special teams. He wasn't even a wide receiver last night. They even had the kid that they just brought in off the street playing
Isaiah
Williams or whatever his name is. They had him on special team. The Burton project didn't work. So you don't even have a contingency plan for wide receiver. All NFL teams right now in the NFL, they're looking at your player who I pointed out on this show is the number 1 free agent in all of football, and Tee Higgins. Google it right now on ESPN, Sports Illustrated, or PFF. The number 1 prospect, not just the number 1 free agent, not just the wide receiver. So allowing he missed a couple games guy to cloud your judgment of what's going on, you have the most viable, like the biggest asset in football sitting right there, and you have your quarterback telling you that I want you there. In the piece of the pie that Tobin and them boys is talking about isn't an abnormal pie that they want you to believe. Right. The difference or the problem that you might run into is the money aspect and the cash flow of it. I could understand that maybe the Bengals have some issues that I don't know about, that we don't know because their books aren't open. That could come up. But in terms of roster construction, what they're doing is the norm for anybody. If you go look at the Dolphins with Tua and the 2 wide receivers he got, the Ravens and their top Pro Bowl players that they got, the 49ers outside of Purdy are paying Trent Williams. Like, all of those dudes are paying the same amount of money.
Remember, the Chiefs had Travis Kelce. Yes. They had Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. All
right, bro. They might not be able to pay Trey Smith this upcoming offseason. Remember, they had to do a tag and trade this past season with L'Jarius Sneed, because of the problems that could arise. The difference with the Bengals is this, and this is my final point, because this is a cook fest at this point.
Right, for sure.
My final point on this is, normally a team would say, well, I got a star cornerback that I got to pay. What happened to CTB this year? He regressed. Well, I got a star safety that's emerging I had to pay. Jordan Battle didn't even get playing time. They said, well, I got a first-round DN. I got to pay him. Miles Murphy didn't even get playing time, and he didn't build up anything either. The Bengals literally have no one to pay with $100 million that I just lined up. The Zim plan that I'm gonna get you on board with, Malik.
The Zimothy plan. Let's hear about your 100 days in office. What do you plan to get done?
Defense wins championship, guy. Yep. I got your back. The Tee Higgins guys, we are all the same. We will unify this year. The difference is, I'm going to get Tee Higgins. We're going to go to the draft. The only thing that we're drafting offensively in the first 2 rounds that we would even look at is like the kid Ratledge from Georgia. I'll take a 2nd-round guard. Outside of that, I am looking at defensive edge, defensive tackle, and cornerback in the first 4 rounds of the draft. I'm going with the most defensive-heavy draft you've ever seen, and I'm going to blow the whole thing up, and I'm going to come back with a young, fast, strong aggressive defense, and we're going to have dogs all over the place to the point that we don't even know if Miles Murphy is going to be active on Sundays because we got so many dogs up front. That's what Tee Higgins can do for you, because once they do that, then we don't have to look at wide receivers in the draft. We don't got to look at none of them early tight ends and stuff like that. The Tee Higgins hands actually enhances defensive wins championship guys playing. And we could all get unified on this. Now, if you run away from all those numbers, because we're going to have to cut this clip, and we're going to have to play this back for a lot of people. You could be an old Who Dey fan and be like, those young punks don't know nothing. But I know how to open up a book. I went to college, and I know how to cite, and I go how to, and I only cite from accredited sources. So everything that I just said, you can run it back, and you can play it as many times as you want. You could tell me how it won't work because you think that it won't work, but I just told you why logically and why from a research standpoint it makes more sense.
You cooked, man.